What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Exciting day. Today is Best Served Podcast 275. We're talking Chinese immigrants, American dream with Look Who's Cooking. We'll be bringing in Ching Ren Hu to talk about the food truck business in Denver, Colorado, getting launched here shortly. And this is Best Served New Vol2, where we really, this is, you know me, this is where most of my passion is being able to unlock, amplify the worth and work of those who feed our communities, the people who are committed to this industry. And I'm so excited about this. So we're going to be diving into this 8-part series, and this is episode 1 of that series. And I'm fired up. It's going to be really great. We're going to really focus today on story, on mission. And so with no further ado, I'd like to bring Ching in now. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jensen.
Day 1, are you ready?
I am ready.
Good.
Super excited, so thank you.
I'm fired up about this. This is going to be a ton of fun. My energy is going to be high throughout this. And when we think of restaurants, when we think of kind of our journey, right, we focus so much on food and beverage, hospitality, the interactions that we create, all of those things, what goes on the plate. And absolutely, mission critical, has to be good. Mm-hmm. Yet what we find more and more is people want to know more. They want unfettered access now, especially in the culinary community. They want to feel like they're a part of the story. And so we need to let people in. And so often we put up a facade in restaurants a lot, in food and beverage. It's not inauthentic. It's our job to always present the very best to make sure that they have the very best experience. And what we found is people want to know about the reality of it, the hustle, the struggle. They want to feel immersed in it. So restaurants can give them that. Food and beverage can give them that. So I want to have you just give everyone the little elevator pitch. Look Who's Cooking, give them an idea of what they can expect, just so we can set the table for people a little bit, and then we will unpack everything today.
Sounds good. Look Who's Cooking is a food truck centered in the Denver metro area, bringing Asian fusion comfort food to your nearby neighborhood.
Hey, that was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Nice, tight, sweet. All right. So we're going to be talking, the title of the episode, Your Family History, I think is fundamentally important. It's in the name, right? Your name is in the name of the business itself. And so I want to unpack that a little bit. So take us back. Tell us a little bit of kind of the family story. I want to start there. I want to talk about your professional career a little bit and how that informs what you're going to plan to do as a business. And then we'll talk very practically about the business and how you're communicating that message. But let's start people kind of take them back a little bit. When we say Chinese immigrants, American dream, you and I discussed that, what that represents for you, your family. So take us back a little bit.
You bet. So both of my parents were born in Shanghai, China. My dad went to Taiwan in the 40s, late 40s, same as my mom. So they were both born in Shanghai, both raised in Taipei. And then my dad went to Cranbrook for his MFA. And then he apparently went to work in New York for about 3 months at an architecture firm and absolutely hated office life. So he ended up going into academia and taught as a professor at the University of Northern Iowa. My mom was, after she graduated high school and stuff, was working and then decided to go to get her degree at University of Northern Iowa because she was doing an after-school conversational English program. And her teacher was from Iowa. And when she was looking at 3 schools for scholarships, they said, well, Louisiana at that time in the 60s was probably not the best place for a Chinese woman to go on her own. I mean, she was the first one in her family to come to the States. And so they're like, well, your English teacher's from Iowa, so go to Iowa. And so she hopped a plane to Minneapolis, where the teacher's parents actually picked her up and brought her. She stayed with them for a few days. They brought her to school, got her set up in the dorm, helped get her kind of set up with lights and dishware, that type of thing. Back in the 60s, this would have been 1966, 67, kind of in that range. University of Northern Iowa had 6 Chinese professors and 3 Chinese students. And so mom was feeling a little out of place, I think, at that point in time. As she was kind of walking through campus, saw dad and was like, holy smokes, another Chinese person. So she was very excited.
So
Dad was,
your family is 2/3 of the Chinese student population at UNI during the 60s.
well, my dad was teaching.
He was teaching. Okay.
Yeah, he was teaching
So we have
already.
9. So you were two ninths, whatever that actually
Yep, exactly.
2/9 of the Chinese representation at UNI.
Mhm.
I think there's something so compelling about that story. It is so the American story for them to, and I think it's great that they both grew up in Shanghai. There was a stop right for both of them in Taiwan, and then
Yep.
they met in Iowa. And
Yeah.
so this is going to be a theme that comes up. And so I want to just stay there for just a little bit longer, because the way that you think about your Chinese heritage and the way that you think about kind of being immersed in American culture is very much informed by your family history. And so people are going to see this theme again and again and again, where you're finding your place, where you're finding what is the synergy, what is the fusion, where and how does your story, your family story, and the current environment of food, all of those things intersect. So for you, when you think about that, like take us back a little bit. Were you born in Iowa?
I was born. All my siblings and I were all born in Iowa, in Iowa City. So
And
same hospital, everything.
in Iowa City, which I know well. Anybody who knows my family history, my uncles made their bones in Ames, Iowa. That's where I first started my career. My wife Betsy, she's a Cyclone through and through. Her brother went to Iowa City, so very much connected. Had no idea. We started talking. I was like, wait a minute, we know all the same places. I love hearing that. So, food culture. Growing up in Iowa, it is known for being able to grow food exceptionally well, not for having a culinary scene of any type until recent history. What was it like growing up for you? Chinese culture, trying to adopt American culture, access to ingredients, all these different things. Unpack that a little bit for us.
My mom was, when I was talking with my mom, kind of backstory and everything too, mom was talking about, when they first moved to Iowa City from Cedar Falls, there weren't any Asian markets at that point in time. And so all the Chinese families would get together and order their food from, New York or whatever, and kind of share in that shipping cost, which I had absolutely no idea. So I was completely blown away. And of course, my dad, being an artist, wanted tofu. And so he created a box actually to make his own homemade tofu.
Here we go.
Which, that's my dad right there in a nutshell. Like if he can figure out a way to do what he wants, he will. Very much a creator, an innovator.
Okay, so we're gonna know where you get that from, right? That
Yeah.
seems like it's going to be very much another theme that comes up again and again, is your father, and that just do it your way, no matter what it takes, hell or high water type mentality.
Very stubborn.
Oh yeah, welcome to the restaurant industry. You're perfect for exactly what it takes to have any opportunity to thrive or even survive in this industry. So I can appreciate that quite a bit. So when did a love for food? Is there a dish? Is there a family get together? Is it the cookout with all the Chinese families? Like, what was that like for you? There's some food memories you have early on.
I remember, dad, being a professor, would have at the end of the semester have, the celebration of all his students that were graduating or just finished their, year-end project type of thing. And so they would host Mongolian barbecues on the backyard. So I remember mom would be prepping all day with cutting down all the vegetables, marinating the meats, that type of thing. And they had a charcoal grill that he had some sort of like makeshift half of a massive sheet pan, essentially. So like it had rims on 3 sides of it, and the front side didn't have a rim, so he could scoop the food off once it was cooked. But people would go through with their paper plates, take all the ingredients that they wanted, and then dad would custom cook each plate for the students. So that was a lot of fun.
I like everything I'm hearing, the ingenuity of it too. Like, I don't know how to cook this, so I'm just gonna make something. I appreciate that as well. Okay, I like this. This sets a tone and understanding. Now let's move forward a little bit. Your career. When did it become a career for you? When did you get into when did you catch the hospitality bug? When did you get into this industry?
You bet. So getting into food for me was probably that first step. Growing up, both of my parents cooked, so I never needed to really learn how to cook. When we would go out to eat, we would go to like an Italian restaurant or a steakhouse, but other than that, or pizza, because pizza. But otherwise, my parents would always kind of cook dinner, both equally very talented. When my dad got sick back in 99 and 2000, and he got put on dialysis, that's when, I was going to college in Iowa, so I could help mom relieve some of that stress and help cook 1 or 2 meals in a week or every other week, just kind of relieve that burden off of her, because she was dad's full-time caretaker for the next 15 years, basically. So, that was when I moved out to Colorado, was to start my culinary journey. I was a server in a restaurant while I was working a full-time job, as well, just to try to learn the ins and outs. But felt like I was hitting a wall in being able to get a job to be in the kitchen, because I didn't have any experience, so to speak. And, I was late 20s, early 30s at that point in time. So I decided to get into the industry and need to go to culinary school. So that's what prompted my move out to Denver.
Gotcha. Okay. This path is making sense. This path, a lot of people have this path. It feels very familiar to me. So for you then, thinking about turning this into your own business, is this the first time this idea has come about? I'm guessing not. How did you kind of think about starting your own business? It seems like it's been in you since the get. So this is probably not the first iteration. Give us an idea of all the things you've scribbled down on a napkin.
You bet. So, when I came out here, the goal was go to culinary school, 1.5 years left, go back to Iowa and open up a brick and mortar.
Back to Iowa.
Because that's where my family is,
Yeah.
And so kind of thought of this as thought of Denver as like kind of a jumping stone, just to kind of get the experience that I needed and then go back. 10 years later, I'm still here. So that obviously didn't work quite that way. But I got a position to help start up a women's bar and lounge and help create the menu and that type of thing while I was in culinary school, which was a huge opportunity at that point in time. Because I was like, wait, what do you mean you want me to be kitchen manager? They're like, create the menu and cook the food. And I was like, that's what I came out here for. So got that break that I kind of needed. I've always wanted to have my own place, but just trying to figure out how to make that happen, is kind of the hard part, I think, to try to figure that part out.
The hardest part, for sure. Okay, I got it. It's ingrained in here. You and I are going to freestyle a little bit and move through kind of your mission, the story that you're trying to tell. I think the story that we tell ourselves, we know pretty well, and we have that history. And sometimes we forget that we haven't shared all of our history with everybody we interact with, yet it so compels all the work that we do. Again, people want to be a part of that. So we want to find ways that you can tell a meaningful and personal story, which clearly you have, and have that be kind of a foundation of your brand. And so what we start with is called, get clear on why you exist. Very existential, big question. Why do you exist? Because if you're going to do this, if you're going to be in this crazy fucking industry, everybody knows, it has to be in you. It has to be why you exist. It has to be, I exist to fill in your personal journey story here. So get clear on why you exist is really important. When we started talking about this idea of kind of why you exist, clearly family is a part of that. That's why I want to start with your family history. Clearly navigating how you're going to fit in, right? Because fitting in has been something that has been a topic, a struggle, an opportunity for your family, for yourself, as multiple generations have navigated, your Chinese heritage and the American culture. So with that, we kind of went through and asked some questions, and I want to just give everyone an idea. The questions are like, why do you do this work? Who is it that inspires you? When the shit hits the fan, and it always does, what is it? Who is it that's going to motivate you, right? What really emotionally moves you to do the work that you're doing? What are people going to say? How are people going to react to what you're offering to them? These are fundamental questions. And then we kind of distill that down and find some of the keywords, some of the threads, some of the things to pull at that are significantly compelling and motivating to you, because otherwise it's just a job, and we don't like jobs. We are such that band of rebels. Like, jobs are for somebody else. I'm going to follow my passion, which we prey on our own passion sometimes and make stupid decisions. right? Because it's our dream and it's our baby, and all of that. That's what I want to kind of get into. So for you, let's get into kind of the practical steps of this, right? I know you have the backstory of what really motivates you, but moving forward, what is it going to be that motivates you? What's the big goal? What's the big thinking? What are you hoping to have with Look Who's Cooking?
I want to bring food to the people and accessible food, having friends that have different dietary needs and that type of thing too. I don't want somebody settling for, oh, well, I guess I'll get a salad because that's the only thing that hits my dietary requirements, but take these 4 items off, and still paying the same price, so having, some vegan options and that type of thing. We are looking at probably making the truck inherently gluten-free, but still kind of playing through a couple of items. Gluten-free bread is just that like hard thing right now to figure out a good price point that makes it, but brings that quality of product that I want to have on the truck too.
Yeah. So gluten-free, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, gluten-free is not inherently Chinese, right? So you're swimming upstream a little bit in that sense. Yet also it's been a pretty big movement. Somebody that we're well connected with, Yumi Tran at Indochine Cuisine, that's one of her big points of emphasis is really being able to bring this cuisine to people in a dietary position to take care of people's tummies, I think she said. So I really like that a little bit. The food truck, why a food truck? Why not, event venues, catering, restaurants? Why a food truck? Why was that the vehicle? Literally the vehicle. Why was that the vehicle for this business?
When I watched the movie Chef after my dad passed away, that was like, that kind of planted that seed 5 years ago. And so it was one thing that we always talked about, like, but every time you look at a food truck, like, it's always like, holy crap, it's so expensive. Like, you need to get a truck that isn't going to break down, plus all the equipment, all that stuff. During the pandemic, I had an opportunity kind of presented to me when I kind of said to the universe, all right, you know what, events are really hard right now. It's hard to get the rejections and the cancellations and all that stuff and catering for people celebrating. And I said, okay, I need something to make me, like, I need to figure out what it's going to take to make me happy. And literally the next day, somebody had posted they had their food truck for sale. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yes, you were listening, right? Like, you were listening, paying attention. I think what you said, what's going to make me happy. And this, for me, this is another pillar, absolute pillar. Sense of belonging is at the center of everything that we do. And if it is not, we are vulnerable. And it's one of the ways that restaurants get themselves into trouble, because we forget, right? We are built different. There's something so compelling, so motivating, and you're going to hear those words from me a lot, compelling and motivating, for us being in the fire, being a part of that team dynamic, struggling. If we don't bleed out of our eyeballs, we don't respect it. It's not always healthy, yet it is very much that sense of belonging. When you find a restaurant, you feel more like yourself than you do without that restaurant. There's something about that. And so the struggles that restaurants have had of recent is because we kind of forget about that sometimes. It's easy to get caught up in the minutia of what you do and how you do it. But why you get out of bed in the morning, who it is you serve, who you are as a team, these are things that are fundamental. Sense of belonging is going to come up again and again. And for you, it's like, what is that thing that's going to make me happy? And you went straight to food memories. And that's what I want to share with people, because I think that's going to be important. So that sense of belonging, that happy, let's go deeper into that for you. You mentioned also for you, your father passing away, this movie Chef, like you're searching for something, and you were open, which a lot of people close themselves off. So I'm grateful to hear that. And you see a movie, you see a post, and you say, fuck it, I'm in. This is what I've been looking for. Like, what was that moment, that catalyst for you? Had you been searching for it and it just found you?
I think it's, I definitely believe in all that woo-woo stuff and the stars aligning and whatnot. When you open yourself up to those opportunities, that's going to present itself. And if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. Very fair asking price. And they worked with me on final pricing and that kind of thing. Fully loaded truck that I got for a steal of a deal. I took one of my friends who owns another food truck with me the first time I went to go look at it, because I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Like, I don't know what to look for. I don't know if it's a good deal or not. And he went with me, and he's like, this is the one. He's like, if you don't buy it, I'm gonna buy it. So,
like
but
that. When you climbed into that, did it? Let's go with Chef, right? It was a raggedy ass truck in that movie, and yet still you could see that glint in his eyes where it's like, there's something there. Did you feel that when you walked in? You're like, this is home. This is where I'm going to create my path. This was where I'm going to feed my community, where I'm going to build a business, all of that. Did you feel that sense of belonging the moment you stepped in it?
Yeah, definitely. Thankfully he took very good care of the truck, so it wasn't climbing into something that had stuff molding in the coolers and whatnot. But he did, you could tell that truck was his baby. And he took great care of it the couple of years that he ran it. So
yeah, I like that. Get in there. Just there's energy. It's palpable. When you get into a kitchen, you feel it. Like you feel
like
it.
home.
It does. It really feels like home. Now, there'll be other times when we talk about how you need to have a work-life balance, and we are so bad at that in restaurants, so bad, because it does feel like home, because there is that sense of belonging, and we yearn for that, because we didn't quite fit in, we didn't always quite fit in. It was like when you find restaurants, like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and so you yearn for that. And so there's a little struggle with that balance, because we're going to talk about the 2-week vacation. You're going to have to take a 2-week vacation and not have to worry about your business once. That is the measure of success that we're hoping for. So, all right, these last 10 minutes or so, I want to wrap. I want to go back and forth a little bit. Mission story. This is the evolution of the mission statement for us, the mission story, right? And we had you kind of list out some keywords, which I loved. You stuck with all C words. I appreciate the alliterations that you focused on with comfort, community, compassion, and you kind of built this. And so great start, right? This is very personal to you. Look Who's Cooking delivers comfort to communities by cooking up compassion. So really good start. A lot of times I don't even have this to work with. So I really appreciate this. Now, this is important because you said things that are in you. Your personality needs to come out of this now. This is going to be one of our big focus points throughout all of this, is if I can copy and paste another brand's name in there, JoJo's Chicken Shack delivers comfort to communities by cooking up compassion, then it can be somebody else's story. And we want this to only be your story. Somebody else could do that. And we want to really think about that. So delivers comfort. What does that mean to you? When you think about delivers comfort, why is delivering comfort quintessential for you? What does that represent?
I think that's that cozy comfort sense of belonging, that it's a safe space for people to come get food, I think is kind of like one way that I like to think about it. So, when I used to have potlucks and stuff with friends, I had one friend that was vegan, and she'd always had to bring her own stuff because like other people didn't really navigate around that. So like my goal was, when we had those parties, I was always creating something that was vegan, but accessible to everybody as well. So people would be like, hey, I want to try that,
Yes, that. Okay. We're going to pull at that. You are personalizing that. Comfort for you is not an abstract notion of comfort food. It makes me feel a certain way. You are individualizing it. I want to go there. I want you to think about the person, the people that you say, that person now, every time they have my food, feels like they have a sense of belonging, like they're a part of our community, because they don't have to bring their own food, because they don't have to feel other, because they are included in the party, right? And that's what we're trying to do. So delivers comfort. We're going to pull at that. That's where your mission starts. You are delivering comfort, yet you are doing that on an individual basis. So I want you to think about that. And just for everybody tuning in, I want you to hold us accountable and Ching accountable through this process. So we're going to work through this. We're going to think. We're going to pull at these different threads. And then next week, the first thing we're going to do is pop up that mission story and say, where are we at now? And keep evolving that, because this is an evolving process. We're not going to, hit it out of the park on the first try. It's going to evolve. And as you get more comfortable in your business, you get more challenged in your business, you get more history behind your business, you get to interact with more people, always coming back to that. That is absolutely okay. As long as the sentiment stays grounded, who you are doesn't shift, the words shift so that the message gets out there with more clarity. So I appreciate that. So, okay, delivers comfort, personal. There's a human on the other side of that equation. So even for you, I think terms like delivering you a personal something, like there's something personal about it. Look Who's Cooking is delivering you the experience to have you feel like you're a part of our community. That night needs to be the sentiment there. So to communities by cooking up compassion. When you think of community, let's go there a little bit. How do you define that? Community is such a big word. We use it all the time. It's a catch-all term. It can mean nothing or it can mean everything. So community, what does that mean to you?
Community for me it's the people that I surround myself with. So on any given day, it could be a slightly different community, but it's kind of that home base. In conceptualizing what the business name was even going to be called, I've got the Little Bird's Nest LLC, trying to figure out how, if we're going to be like the Little Bird's Food Truck, and we're like, that doesn't quite work. And like playing through the different name reiterations. And then a friend came to visit with her husband and he's like, what are you going to call the food truck? Look Who's Cooking. And we're like,
yes.
Yes, that's it. And it stuck. And so for me, it's knowing where I'm setting up for that week, that night, whatever that might be, and what the demographics of, not fully change the meal, but is it going to be a demographic? Say I go up to Boulder, I'm going to need to have a little bit more vegetarian, vegan options on the menu versus I'm in downtown Denver or out in Lakewood. What does that look like? We've talked about having a pay it forward mentality, where at the end of the week, utilizing those ingredients that aren't utilized before they go bad to be able to help create meals for underserved populations, or those that are needing food. But also, I recently started playing around with the like wooden nickel. So if somebody wants to buy a meal for somebody, they can give that nickel to someone. They're coming up and redeeming it. So there's still a sense of they're purchasing it or they're buying it. So they're not any lesser of taking a handout, if you will, but making them feel human. Because I feel like, especially with the pandemic and everything, people have hit on hard times, and you shouldn't feel like any lesser of a person because you might not be able to pay for a full meal. You should still be able to get nourished.
Yeah. So there's an undercurrent that's happening here for you. Inclusion is absolutely at the epicenter of what you're trying to create here. That needs to be the depth of expression that you need to have in that needs to be so personal. And I think you're already thinking about it correctly. You're thinking about any community that you go into, you're going to take the time and put in the work to think about them and how you can deliver for them, not how you can get them to buy what you're selling. And that relationship is going to be very, very important for you, which is great because episode 2, we get into customer archetypes and really understanding the why of what problem are you solving for them? You are a problem solver. So let's go at the problem a little bit. And your food is just the proof that you are delivering on your promise to create a sense of inclusion, that sense of belonging. So let's communities, let's really think about that. That's where it is. It's humans feeling like they get to be a part of something that they usually don't. That's what it is, and you're just doing it through simple, delicious food. Yet, there's this interesting battle at play where it's like, oh, it's just food. Like, don't overthink it. You're right. It is just food. It just goes here and it's delicious. And that should be matter of fact. Yet, I also believe that if you change one day, you change a life. Like one day of somebody just feeling like everything is wrong with the world and they have a dish from you. And in that moment, everything is right with the world can change somebody's trajectory. So yeah, food can change the world. Absolutely. One person at a time. Absolutely. So believe that. Cooking up compassion. I kind of feel like that was threaded in, but is there something more when you think about cooking up compassion?
Just thinking about those around you, and the experience, the collective experience for everybody. Because I think that, going to different events with food trucks and that type of thing, seeing lines at specific trucks and not other trucks, and trying to figure out how we can all work together where you can work together to create the experience for the end user, and making sure that, if I do choose to go to an event that has multiple trucks, making sure that there's not a lot of overlap in dishes, ingredients. I mean, I don't know how many things I've gone to that has 3 trucks that have some variation of a nacho on it. And I'm like, well, like
Right.
that's not fair to any of the trucks at that point in time on who you choose and what makes you choose where you end up spending your money at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot of being more like everyone else than anyone else type scenario where it's like, yeah, the nachos and the this and the that and the mac and cheese sell really well, but are they truly? Look, I bet you like them. Yeah, you like them. Do they serve your mission?
Mhm.
And if it wasn't there, would you still be okay? Do you have the emotional reaction to it, or is it just a vehicle for sales? And if it's just a vehicle for sales, you'll have short-term success. And then you'll say, I can't take that off the menu. People buy it. They buy it because they don't know what to buy because you're not giving them a compelling reason. You're not motivating them to buy anything else.
Yeah.
You're just showing them a thing that's safe.
Mhm.
And safe means you're vulnerable to somebody else who's better or has more money, which is most everybody when you're starting out new. So
Yep.
don't be vulnerable to that. Absolutely. So it's something there. The compassion is interesting because it's very heartfelt for you. It's also like, let's be a little bit tactical, right? One of the questions in why you exist that kind of we're asking you is, what separates you from the rest? And I make it very broad, like not what separates your food, what separates this, but what separates you from the rest. It's the way that you think, clearly, Ching, is what separates you from the rest. So that needs to come out. Look who's cooking. The other thing that I want to do is like, I love how everything comes from here, right? And there's the depth to it. I love that. And even in your name, it's already a pun. Like you're already playing on this word. So I want to see some more personality in there as well. And I think people will as well. So that, it doesn't have to be so heavy. It can be inspired, absolutely. Yet it can also be playful and whimsical and feel lighthearted and feel like, come on in. It's your party too. So that's what I really want to focus on. Does that resonate? Do you feel like we can get there?
I think so.
Yeah. I like this a lot. I think you have something really good there. The different elements delivers comfort, communities, cooking up compassion. You have the sentiment there. Now let's pull at the personality, the individualism that you're trying to create for yourself, for those communities. Because then when you or anybody says this, it speaks directly to them and only from you. Nobody else can co-opt that and also have your nachos, because the nachos aren't what you're selling. You're selling comfort, compassion, and community. That's different, and I like that. Okay, this was good. Feel good? That was a good first session, right? Yep. It's very informal today. Next week, we will get into checking a bunch of boxes and bunch of numbers, and there's some like practical, boring demographics gobbledygook. But I think it's important because we need to balance heart and head back and forth, and as seamless as we make that process, the better it is for us. So it'll be very much backstory, and now we're like, all right, where does this person work and how much money they make and all these practical things. And then we go, great. Now don't put them into boxes. Now I need you to tell a compelling story and get really into their heart and head. So we'll dig into that next week. All right. That is it for this week, everybody. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Ching. Thanks to Jordan Bush and Krista Young and Seven Shifts for underwriting this whole series. Really excited to have them be a part of what we're trying to accomplish here, where this is not about selling anything. This is about unlocking and amplifying the worth and work of people who feed their community. Ching, you are feeding your community, and you're redefining the way that we think about community in this industry. That matters, and that's what we really want to support. So again, Best Served Podcast 275, Chinese immigrants to American dream, and you are living that dream, as scary as it is, with a new business during a pandemic, all of that. Yeah, I can tell your game. This is going to be a fun series. So thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. Ching, we're going to have some fun next week. That's it for today, everybody. Cheers.